Okay, so we're going to go over a quick procedure how to lay out a hole. So I have my distance here. Usually sometimes it's just finding center. I get a vice grip and I can scribe it on either side. So right here I have a number of lines, but it's kind of hard to see. But and then now I'm going to center punch that. Okay. So that's just to get started, and then probably what I'll do, because it's got a bit of an angle, I want it to be pretty good center punch. Throw it in here. Need to get some meat behind it. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to set this drill up and put a 1-inch hole through here. Let's go. I'm going to tighten this down. That's good. These are tight. I'm going to come over here, turn this on, hit this button. This is our coolant. We'll wait to turn that on. So right here, you can see it's locked. You press this button, it disengages the lock. So we're going to try to find our center position. Adjust this. So there's a switch right over here. You can see there's an up and a down. So we're going to go down and we're going to find the center punch. So we're going to put the quick change attachment in here. Make sure it's nice and clean. This is good. Okay, so that's in. Now to line up on our center punch, because we're going to push a 1-inch drill through there, I got this live center here, and I'm just going to put that in there. So I press release on the hydraulic arm, and you can, turning this wheel moves this in and out. This goes up and down. So I'm just going to find that center punch and press that button. So now we're lined up with the center. We're going to take this out and we're going to load our drill bit in. Okay, so just for these Morse taper drill bits, there's different sleeves. So I'm just make sure these are nice and clean. I'm going to put it in here, and usually you can just tap a hammer on that. To clear them out, you just get a little wedge and you tap it out. So that's how those work. Okay, so now to set our speed, this handle right here, you press it down and you move it forward, that's forward. It sits in the center, and then you pull it down and that's reverse. Okay, so what we need to do is we'll look at the drill chart and we'll figure out the best speed. We got a 1-inch drill bit, it's been sharpened. So, I mean, what we're drilling mild steel, so it's about 100 RPM here for a 1-inch drill bit. So we're gonna come back. I have it set at 90, but let's start slower. So you press this button here and you pull this lever up and you can hear it engage. So this is at 50 RPM. And now what we're gonna do is set the feed rate. So for every revolution it goes around, it's going to go down a certain amount, right? So what we can do here, as you can see, if it's going around 50 RPM, every time it goes around, it goes 50 times around a minute, and every time it rotates around, it's going to feed 1 thou down. So we can change that to 3.9. So what happens now is when we push this and we pull this back, you can see this handle start to move, and this is actually feeding itself in. So we're going to start at a pretty conservative spot. Now we're going to get a little bit closer to our workpiece, not too close. We're going to go and click our switch to turn our coolant on. And if you've got a smaller workpiece too, you can, I'll show you at the end of this video, but you can put this vise in this vise. So we're going to try to keep this vise on here majority of the time. really quickly, you can see there's not a lot draining in this coolant, and I can also hear the pumps cavitating a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up some coolant, and we're gonna dump it in here. This is just a splash seal. So you can see right over here, our coolant flows through the base tray of this machine, and here's. So we're going to mix up a bucket of coolant and throw it in. What we have is our coolant concentrate. So right here, you can see it's ML spec. What we're going to do is this has a metering valve where it's going to pull the concentrate out, and it's going to fill it with water. So we have this bucket here. It's only for water and coolant only. It's nice and clean because you don't want to put grit and all this stuff in there. We're just going to open this valve, and you can see it's coming out all pre-mixed. So right now, this dial is at 2, and you just want to keep an eye on this because like you don't want too much oil, but you want enough to keep the equipment from rusting. So we're going to fill this up, and we're going to dump it in the top. And just when you go to shut this off, we're just going to shut this valve off. Make sure we drain out all this. We're going to hang this over here because that can just hold a little bit of the scrap. And we're gonna dump this in the machine, and we're gonna put the rag back over it to keep the dust out.
Whatever you want.
Okay, so we're just gonna put some coolant in here, and it's gonna get a video of it flowing back there. So we got the coolant running a bit better. We're going to turn it forward. We're going to pull that in. And now it's just going to feed through that. So it's feeding it on its own. And as long as your drill is sharp and you're monitoring the machine, you got coolant on it, we shouldn't have too much of an issue. And we're going to start with it at 50 RPM, and pretty soon actually I might speed it up. I think I'm gonna. Long stringy chips, so you can do is just disconnect the feed. Usually there's a hook here, and you can hook it off, but you just don't want that throwing the coolant out. Oh, that's it. We're through our hole. So it's just that easy. One thing I did mention is when you go to if you want to run smaller parts, this vise can go right in here, and you can do it by hand. This is obviously for big parts, or we can shift the parts off, and you can clamp it right to this pipe. So when you're done with this, make sure you pull off all your chips and clean it up, because it's not fair to the next person that needs to come behind and use it. What we're going to do is we have this cart is just set up for the radial arm drill, stuff like that, and the wrenches and the handles are going to go on there, the drift pins. So keep all this tidy and clean, and from there we're going to pick that up and throw it in the scrap bin. Just to pull this out, you just pull this little ring and pop it out. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to just get set up to drill and tap a little hole. So we're going to feed this by hand, so this has been already set up. I'm going to pull that in. Just make sure this is tight. Okay. Going to feed that in. We'll snug this up. So this is a 2764 drill, so that's a 1/2 inch. So that could be around, if you want to be conservative, you see mild seals orange, so let's say 400 RPM. So what we're going to do is go here, click 400, right? We're going to turn our coolant on. And just so I'm not wasting a bunch of material. So you can just use this like a normal drill press too. So you see I'm just pressing on this. You could fully engage it if you want. But for the smaller the drill bit, unless you're really confident, you'll end up just shattering the drill bit. But this is fine. But like I said, you can just feed it by hand. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to tap this hole. So I'm going to turn the coolant off. We're going to pop our little thing out of here. This here is a tapping column, so you can see the difference is they have a bunch of different grooves in here. And you see the difference between a tapping collet and a drill collet is this doesn't have any. So there's actually a friction plate in here that, depending on the size of the tap, it actually adjusts the friction. So hopefully, if everything's set right, these taps won't break. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to push this up in here. So that's good. We're going to go back down to about 50 RPM. I'm going to feed down because you don't want to run out of stroke. And then, so yeah, we got the tapping fluid. You can use tapping oil. And we're just going to feed it in. You can see, actually, you see it clicking out. So it could be that this tap is dull. But you saw it clicking there. We're just going to clean that up a bit. Try that again. So you can see it feeding itself back in there. We'll put a better tap in here and try this, because I think this tap's just too dull. So we put a new tap in here. Like I said, this tap I think was a bit dull. This is a spiral fluted machine tap, and this one's a taper fluted, so this will actually push the chips down. So we'll try this again, and we're just looking to make sure it doesn't click. And I'm not forcing it in there. Now it's gently feeding itself in there. So you can look right through there, it should be pushing the chips all the way through. So then that winds down. I'm just going to back it out, and it's just that easy. And what you want to do is, like, I just put a light bit of pressure on this, and that way when it's done, it's out of that hole. There you go. So it's just that easy to tap a hole and drill it. You don't want to go and move around a bunch. You know, ideally, if you drill it, you should tap it right there. So these tap heads have 2 set screws on either side, and you can pop these out. And yeah, it should be it.